Evening, good morning. Welcome to week 3 for PSSL 6240, Political Violence and Terrorism. Before I start, I just want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. If there's mothers in the classroom, I want to wish them a happy Mother's Day, and I'd like to extend a happy Mother's Day to all your mothers in this class. So don't forget to at least give them a call or a Skype or a card for today. Just a couple of announcements. I will be spending my Mother's Day tomorrow in Dulles Airport because I am going to the Middle East for 2 weeks. My wife is very thrilled that I will be missing half of Mother's Day to actually travel. So yeah, she's pretty happy about it. But I will be off the net for at very least for tomorrow and Monday. I will have internet access and I will be able to address any problems or issues, but I will be at the very least traveling, and I don't know when I'll be able to get up into my hotel room and access Wi-Fi. So just keep that in mind for any questions or issues that happen in the next day or so. And then when I get to the papers, when the papers are handed in, I shouldn't have a problem turning those around and getting them back to you in a timely fashion. But if I do, I'll let you know and give you a heads up on that. Second announcement, Adobe Connect we had on Thursday. I think it went well. We'll have one more in week 7, just so we can talk about the final paper, and then a lot of questions on jobs and working in the federal government or military transition or even working in the private sector. So we'll have another hour-long sit-down during week 7 for that. Just want to again go over last week. History was the first part where we talked about the 4 waves, and we specifically discussed the FLN and the Irgun. These are particularly the 2 case studies. You need to know them. You might not work with history in your day-to-day jobs, but as far as patterns of terrorism, as far as using terrorism to capture the media, FLN and Irgun were really the ones that pioneered that. And you will see their tactics transfer into current terrorism, Middle East terrorism, even left-wing, environmental, right-wing, radical terrorism as well. So I would know those case studies for that sake, and also know those case studies for your final as well. And then the second part, we went into depth on what is terrorism, what is not. Just a couple of things I took away from some of the discussion boards. A lot of you gave a pass to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Dresden, saying it wasn't terrorism because we declared war. So if you're going to do that, you have to be able to address, okay, who gets to declare war? Is it because we're a democracy and we have a Congress that can declare war, therefore we use those to bombing civilians? Is Osama bin Laden in a cave? Does he get to declare war? Does non-state actors get to declare war? Do only state actors get to declare war? Do only state actors that are democracies get to declare war? You need to kind of pull on the string a little bit if you're going to bring that argument up in your paper. Another one that a persistent theme, and I brought this up in those case studies. When do attacks on military are considered terrorism? Most of you said USS Cole was terrorism, but an IED attack in Iraq was not terrorism. Well, we might have been in a war in Iraq, but certainly a battleship in Yemen, which was the USS Cole, that's considered war, and attacking that by Al-Qaeda, they considered that war. So again, when are you at war? And if you're at war, do you get to make attacks against civilians? Those are again some of the questions that you need to address in detail. Some of you, again, going back to Hiroshima, shorten a war. Well, again, that's subjective to historic interpretation, whether Hiroshima actually shortened World War II. But again, you can draw that argument even further. You can say Osama bin Laden, by attacking the World Trade Center, wanted to shorten the war between the U.S. and the Middle East. Again, that's a little bit of a specious argument, but again, that's a theoretical argument that could be made. Killing, and if you want to categorize it as terrorism, categorize it as an excessive use of force, or not even categorize it as any of the above, again, you'll have to back up your arguments there. And then finally, the cause, there is a certain cause that allows me to engage in terrorism. Some people brought it up with the Irgun in Israel, under the backdrop of the Holocaust, that because they were so persecuted, those means were required. And it was even brought up in that little documentary that I YouTubed, or I linked in the lecture. If you're a weak state, you do what you must. That was what the quote that came out. At what point is it okay, or what point is it not terrorism? Is Nelson Mandela, because the apartheid regime was so vicious, is it not terrorism? Do you consider one case maybe a lesser act of terrorism because the cause you're doing is so righteous? All things to consider when writing your paper. So that's just kind of wraps up the what is terrorism, what is not terrorism. One thing I should have mentioned on my list of things I want to talk about the paper, or do's and do nots. The big do not is I don't want a laundry list when you do your paper, or any paper for that matter. I don't want, if you're going to say the Fort Hood shooting is an act of terrorism, I don't want, here's 15 reasons why the Fort Hood incident is an act of terrorism. The Fort Hood shooting is an act of terrorism. I would rather you focus on 2 or 3 and then drill down on those than to give me a 15 reasons. So yeah, that's another piece about the paper that I want you to focus on. So that covers last week. Next week, history part 2, and this is the road to 9/11. In this we ask, what are the social, political, economic, and cultural and religious factors that led to 9/11. But it's not just 9/11. It's, if you can recall back in 2001, it's why did the Arab world seem to rejoice in 9/11? Why were there? And some of those stories get exaggerated, but there wasn't that level of empathy towards the United States that came from the Arab world, from the street and from their leaders. Why? Why is that? And we look again at those cultural, economic, political, religious factors that may have contributed to that, and contributed to the anger that was in the Arab world towards the United States up to 9/11. You're going to get kind of 2 arguments here. You're going to get the Road to 9/11, which is an excellent documentary. Definitely a good. You can watch that with your family-friendly oriented documentary. And then you have the Zakaria article that I've assigned that I think kind of maybe are 2 not quite overlapping. In fact, they're 2 different viewpoints on this. The Road to 9/11 says that the causes of 9/11 lie in deep historical roots that go back to the Crusades, that go back to the colonial period. And then Zakaria says, yeah, you can go all the way back there, but really you have to look at the last 20, 30 years to get an answer to 9/11. I'll let you decide which you think is more relevant, and I'll let you post that on the discussion boards as well. And I'll also ask you to look at what are the historical, demographic, cultural issues that might have contributed to 9/11. And then the second part is a fascinating part of counterterrorism. Can't go into more detail because of the brevity of the course, but it's threat finance. I just want to first say that instead of the dynamic PowerPoint slides you might see for other lectures, you're only going to see a static PowerPoint slide for the threat finance piece. But you also see a lecture on YouTube by Napolini. I don't agree with everything she says. She comes off as a little anti-American. Some of it's true, a lot of it's not. But what she says about a terrorist finance and what she says about the vulnerabilities of terrorist groups to financial tools, and what the quote that she says is, it's a terrorist group is a fundraising group that occasionally shoots somebody. That's actually very, very accurate. So I encourage you to, or you're going to view the lecture and go in depth on the discussion board on that. So with that being said, I just want to wrap it up. Happy Mother's Day, and I'll be off the net for the next couple of days, but if there's any questions or issues, please let me know.